Hi, everyone. I'm Billy Hempler from GovCon Leaders Circle. We're doing another Insight interview today with Jeff Dohmann from Xpect Solutions. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great, Billy, and thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Well, before we started here, we are just talking about standing desks. I have one at the office. I'm the only person with one at the office, but I don't have the luxury of having one at home.
Mhm.
You want to pick it up from there? You have one?
Yeah, I'm a big time standing desk person. I get mocked and made fun of at work at times. Maybe my wife will tease me, but I've had a standing desk at home for a long time, dating back to kind of COVID times. And then when I started at Expect almost a year and a half ago, that was my one requirement in the office. I don't need a fancy desk, but I need a standing desk. So that's where I am today. And I've been a standing desk guy for a long time. I think all day for the most part. I stand. You'll notice if I'm in meetings for a while sitting, I get a bit fidgety. So
A little
um,
anxious.
yeah, a little anxious. So this
Yeah.
is how I'm most comfortable.
Are you going to get one of those walking pads?
That's next level. I haven't gone there yet. It's been on my. I've thought about it, but yeah, I think that's the next logical step for me in my kind of standing desk routine or my standing desk setup.
Okay. All right, great. Well, now that we got that out of the way, do you want to tell us a little bit about Expect Solutions?
Absolutely. I've been at Expect for almost a year and a half, but Expect Solutions itself has been around for about 20 years. Most of that has been as a founder-owned business for about 18 of the 20. And really, it started as a lot of kind of small businesses start, a handful of subcontracts, and kind of building the business and your reputation over time. And a handful of years ago, we were fortunate enough to win a large prime contract, and now have multiple prime contracts. So this company's evolved from being only a couple people for a while to now we're over 200 kind of billable employees, and so it's been quite a rise for the company. The founder's still in our business, so we were acquired by private equity a little bit less than 2 years ago. But it's a cool thing where the founder's still in the business. The founder's still so focused on the mission and the customers, and so you get a lot of the stories and history of what made this, kind of what built this company, and a lot of that's still here. And with the infusion of private equity, we're now kind of taking things to another level from a scaling perspective and a growth perspective. So Ash Halim is the founder of Expect, is plenty involved in the business today, so critical to a lot of our customer work. And then we're backed by New Spring Capital, and I know you've had Priya on before, so
Yeah.
I'm not the first a New Spring CFO to join GovCon Leaders, but it's cool to see what they're building over there, and I think we're going on a real nice journey here as well.
New Spring's doing great stuff. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of working with a few other firms in the portfolio as well. Great. Well, we've got a lot going on in the industry right now. Wanted to get your take, specifically what you've seen in the last several years, what you're seeing from Expect. Diving into that right now, what are the main issues you're seeing in the industry?
Um, I I think there's a lot going on. I think certainly since the start of this administration, there's been so much in the way of starting with Doge, government shutdown, and just this change in priorities and approach. I don't necessarily view it as concerns. I view it more so as opportunities, and kind of I think about it as running to the ball versus running away from it. How can we evolve and change our approach to meet where our customers are at? I think some of the things that we've seen within our customer set is a bigger move, certainly to firm fixed price contract structures, less
Mhm.
focused on hours and more on outcomes, delivering innovative solutions and coming forward with that proactively. I think that's all exciting things. I think that's all aligns with the thesis we have at Expect to kind of deliver something that exceeds maybe what the government has seen before. And so I think those are the opportunities I've seen. I think it will be interesting to see as, we're, almost the halfway point of this administration, how that will change as we, look forward to a new administration. But, I think it's been good. Some of these changes have been, I think, a good thing for our business. So I view it again as more of an opportunity. I think another thing that sticks out though is the urgency. It feels I've been, in government contracting for 20 or so years. I've never felt this degree of maybe urgency in the government wanting to do things quickly. And so again, you have to, be on your best, and you might have to go above and beyond, even further than maybe what you've done historically. But I think that's sense of urgency to deliver has never been higher. But again, I view that as an opportunity, and using the same analogy, we're trying to run towards that ball and take advantage and deliver something that meets or exceeds our government's expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem kind of a silly thing to even say, but I know at least last year, and certainly at least this year and parts of last year, the reframing, retooling what you've maybe marketed your firm as, you have to retool it as almost a tech firm in some places where it may have been perceived as a typical government contractor. I'll just pick on Booz Allen, for example. I know that that's a big initiative.
Mhm.
Um, and value add. That was the silly part I'm getting at, but the value add has to be present, moving the needle, like actually instead of just checking the boxes.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. What, well, we'll have to touch on it eventually, so might as well touch on it now. AI. I
Mhm.
mean, a few years ago, couldn't spell strawberry. Now it seems like it's relevant. Do you want to share any ways you're using it, implementing it, how you're capitalizing to stay competitive using AI?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's certainly been an evolving thing. I think we've talked about it for, the last couple years. I think if I think about the last several months, it's really even picked up steam beyond what we were accustomed to. I think we're we're leaning into it as far as what we're I kind of bucket into two things. What we're coming up with solutions to be innovative for our customers to drive higher levels of automation, efficiency, just higher level of customer service. We're investing in that way for client facing AI. But I think a lot of the audience that'll be watching this, it might be in more of the finance and corporate side of back office AI. Within our group, we've been leaning in as far as we're utilizing Claude to add efficiencies into how we do reporting. We had a board meeting a couple weeks ago. Claude was huge for making that a more efficient process as we come through our building presentations, for that visuals, right? Suddenly, as you might imagine, a CFO and the like are probably not the best at making eye popping slides and content that are easily digestible for the audience. I think it's been huge in helping in that way. I think what we're really trying to figure out now is overall processes that might be inefficient, and how can Claude drive more efficiency in how we're doing things as far as AR, AP, timely timesheets, right? As a lot of this audience will also know, that's a critical part of close, is having timesheets in and getting invoices out, right? And so how can we make that more efficient? I think my team has been huge as we try to think about the art of the possible there. We don't have all the answers right now. What I can say is I already feel like it's adding value.
Yeah.
I try to make it a point as I start a task to say, hey, pause for a beat and say, is this something that I could leverage
Yeah.
AI to do? Right? If it's a task that takes me 10 or 15 minutes, can I tee it up with AI to work on it in the background, and then I move to something else, or move to a third task and have AI do two simultaneously? I think it's a little bit of kind of reprogramming your brain. I think at times it's can be a little bit hard, if I'm being honest, as far as if you're in finance, you're used to having Excel open. You almost, in a weird way, maybe not a weird way, but enjoy the analysis and the reconciliation that might come from looking at data. But I also have to remember, there's what feels like hundreds of tasks to complete in a day. How can I get to all of those more efficiently and add productivity to my day? So
Sure.
I guess a little bit of a long answer. I think the biggest thing though is we're leaning into it. We're trying to think creatively of how to leverage it. And I think we're constantly getting the questions from New Spring. The question continues to come up really in the industry, right? I don't know if there's been an event that you've gone to or I've gone to in the last year where AI hasn't been brought up. So I think it's good in a way of just hearing other perspectives, right? Other
Yeah.
ideas. And it kind of, makes us smarter and gives us ways to, maybe leverage it more in the future.
Yeah. No, great answer. We've each heard the horror stories and the uh I don't know if champion story is the best, but both sides where you've got over here, yeah, I took what would have taken 8 hours and they're taking care of it daily now, they being an agent or several. And
Hmm.
then over here, oh yeah, we gave it to AI and it deleted our database.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but those are extremes. I think the analysis I'm doing, it sounds like in some ways you're doing this as well, as it's like, okay, I want to constantly be thinking about this. How can I be more efficient, more effective, but not um overuse it where I basically have to recreate everything it's doing anyway, and now I've fed it, given it data, and I'm in the exact same spot. I
Right.
think a lot of people are in that place of concern too. It's a little bit of, okay, I'll wait a little bit until the Mercedes is cheaper to get you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. No, but it's already made so many impacts I can think of without getting in too much. In my day to day in our teams, it sounds like it's done a lot for you. I'm sure in the coming years it'll be even crazier to see what we can accomplish.
Yeah. I think a pointed example that I found to be great is it's a little bit like the maybe entry level employee where if I'll give it a lot of feedback initially, right?
Yeah.
And one example, I said the board slides, but I think as part of our monthly financial package, we now have a presentation, PowerPoint presentation that accompanies our kind of robust financial pack where it's built by AI. And the first time we did that, hey, it's prompts, several prompts back and forth, but it's like that entry level employee, hopefully, where you kind of teach them and give them instructions the first time, and then the next month, it becomes easier and easier. It's more of a update, and they already kind of understands the key areas that we want to kind of, whether it be visually showing the financials or whatever specific requirements we have, it's better the next time. So we're already seeing that it's adding more in the way of insights and visibility for me as well as our key stakeholders.
Yeah. It is such an interesting concept, and I mean, it's been like this. This is what it's been pitched at as for a long time, but being able to teach at this level a computer effectively something that it will then learn fast enough. I know, the smart guys that are watching this will go, "Yeah, we've been doing this for 50 years." But I don't know, maybe it's not as weird for you. An entry level staff, yes, it makes sense. Year 2, they're better than year 1, but
Mhm.
being able to teach a system that then learns and now is intuitive, now is analytical, it's still such a crazy concept.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Well, good. All right. Well, I want to bring it back to you. Talk a little bit about your history, your background, and bring us all the way to today. So,
Sure.
where are you originally from, Jeff?
So I grew up in Centerville, so I'm a local boy to DC.
Yep.
So grew up in Centerville, went to high school at Paul VI in Fairfax, and then went to Virginia Tech for college. So was always kind of in the area, and then right after school, as a lot of local folks found, there was plenty of jobs or opportunities in the DC area. So been kind of around this area my entire life.
Yep. I'm with you. I never left either. And so you started at Accenture right out of school, right?
Actually, I didn't. For the first kind of 6 months of my career, I was in audit. Um,
Okay.
I I didn't enjoy it that much, but kind of also knew that I wanted to, do something a little bit different, and so I made the jump to Accenture about 6 months into my career, and then short stint at audit, but long stint at Accenture. So I've spent most of my 20 years there. Really just an incredible experience for me there and getting so much exposure. I moved around to different teams and was in leadership roles in different functions. Met my wife at Accenture, so that was certainly the highlight. And but it was a really good experience for me. I think I still lean on that foundation more than anything as I think about how I want to lead a team. I had a lot of great mentors there, a lot of great colleagues, friends. Several people I still talk to today. So really enjoyed my experience there. And yeah, so Accenture still in my blood. I guess I make the joke you could take the boy out of Accenture, but you can't take the Accenture out of the boy. So there's still some big company, kind of core principles inside me. But I think, the last several years, I've moved to smaller government contractors, whether it be founder owned or private equity backed. And I think I've tried to find a balance between operating things from at scale and maybe some of the stuff I learned at Accenture but also being nimble and innovative and try to lead in my own way and try to you know operate a team as frankly as lean and as efficient as I can. So I think there's but so much of it is built off that kind of Accenture foundation of the different experiences I had there.
That's great. You had an amazing tenure at Accenture. Do you want to tell us how many years it was officially? Was it
14 years at Accenture.
14 years? Yeah, that's great. You really don't see that as much these days. And
No.
so the first thing that pops in my mind is high school's 4 years. That feels like 10 when you're thinking back on it. College,
Hmm.
4 years, feels like 10. You were at Accenture for 14 years.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And so you finished at Accenture, pretty senior manager at the time, and you started at Sierra 7 after that?
Yeah. That's right. So, um, you know, I I had a wonderful career at Accenture. I went to business school while I was there. I was ready to kind of take a next step in my career, and I thought about the CFO path of how I could what would be the next step there. The Sierra Seven thing was a perfect fit for me. I'd been talking to their CFO and he was former Accenture, so even through the interview process, so much of the lingo, the acronyms, we were all, him and I were very on the same page as far as that and what he wanted to build out. I think I've even told him this. It felt like he wanted to Accenturize Sierra 7. So for somebody that had been in Accenture for 14 years, that was
Got you
was
excited.
it got me excited. Hey,
Yeah.
it was a move that felt scary, yes, but at the same time, it felt familiar as well. And he's still, a friend, mentor to me in my career, and I just learned a ton through that experience. I mean, I think through Accenture, you're in you're in your own kind of team and function, but in a smaller company, suddenly I'm getting exposure to managing cash, managing benefits renewal, managing insurance. You're doing all the different kind of swim lanes or scope areas that a CFO is responsible for. And in a big company, you don't necessarily do all of those things. You'll have a very
Yeah.
specialized role that doesn't, I wasn't worried about certainly Accenture's, cash or Accenture's insurance renewals or anything like that. In a smaller company, you're looking at all of it. And I really enjoyed that. It felt like I could make a big impact all the time, whether that's implementing something new that didn't exist, whether that's renegotiating an agreement that helps, save the company, whether that's having benefits that, potentially improve employee retention. All things that, I learned there and felt very fortunate as part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many pros and cons each way you go, right? And you just hit the nail on the head there. Bigger company, you're in this lane unless you get some sort of rotation or mix it up. Smaller companies where you're going to get that. Now the depth is a little bit different. But that's great. You've had both best of both worlds at this point.
Yep.
Okay, so much of our audience, you've probably heard this question. We asked Priya and many others. Much of our audience is hoping to eventually get to that next level, whatever that may be at their company. It can be very difficult. Can you tell us about that leap from the VP role at Sierra 7 to the CFO role at Groundswell?
Yep. So, I had a great stint at Sierra 7. The Groundswell opportunity came to me through, relationships I had from leadership at Accenture. There were some Accenture folks there and knew of me. And so in a way, it felt familiar there as well. And it was this, I'd aspired to be a CFO as this CFO opportunity. I would, be totally honest. It is scary to make that leap, or it was for me at the time. Um, I had two young children at home. One of mine was, I think, at the time, a month or two old. So suddenly I'm making this jump while also, having having a new baby at home. I think I learned a lot from that whole experience. The first kind of CFO role. I think how I felt like I got to that point, reflecting on, how that opportunity came up. I think it's the relationships that you build, not even it, sometimes you might think relationships are the happy hour, the lunch, that type of thing. The relationships really stem from, in my opinion, you know, the meeting that you might have led that went really well, the email that you sent to a broad audience that was, well received and clear on expectations, how you carry yourself, your image and how that is throughout the workplace. I think back to that in my career of all those opportunities that you're really, showing well that can open up doors down the line. And for me, that felt like it played a factor in getting that initial, CFO opportunity. So I think it's so much the relationships, being easy to work with, being nice. Don't forget to smile, like those simple, things that, you might forget from time to time are the things that
Yeah.
make, can help you find those opportunities. I think as I think about kind of going back to somewhat being, intimidated by the role and what, comes with that. I think some of the things that I'm proud of that helped me are asking for help and leaning into relationships. I think at a bigger company, but don't necessarily have to do that as often, but within, my world now, certainly going back to, whether it be Sierra 7, Groundswell as well. I mean, leaning into the connections and the network you have, the service provider network, because I'm I'm not going to know everything. I think, and you have to be willing to raise your hand and ask for help, and be able to have that person, email, phone number to say, "Hey, I have to do this. Do you know anybody that specializes in that?" Um, I have some attrition on my team. I need and some kind of surge support in a pinch. Who do I call in that situation? So I think it's so much leaning on your network to help you, because otherwise I think it just becomes too overwhelming when you put so much of that kind of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I think what I also tried to do is lean in and continue to do is lean into the relationships. Um, I don't, in a way, CFO is always in an interesting spot because you're, holding the company, frankly, and everyone around you accountable to, financial expectations.
Mhm.
And so there is at times, maybe a negative connotation to that. And CFO can almost be scary or a little bit of a wet blanket. But at the same time, for me to be successful, I need the people around me to be successful. So how can I give them the resources and tools to help them day to day?
Yeah.
I also want them to be comfortable to come to me and not necessarily be scared of, hey, I need Jeff, I'd like to invest this much. Okay, well, what's the business case for it? And and for them to at least be kind of equipped with that understanding, then to come to me. I don't want it to be a bad thing. It should be a good thing that there's a strong, business case or ROI associated with making an investment. So um, yeah, I think those are kind of some of the principal things that I try to prioritize, continue to prioritize today is leveraging the network around me to help me, and the relationships both inside the company and then outside the company as well, I think are important.
If I can recap that, so you mentioned it at the end there again, network, so crucial. Knowing where to go for resources, network. It almost sounds like you're describing maybe like a law of averages where it's like opportunities come even when they're not designed opportunities. So that meeting that you held and you crushed it and you did a really good job with presenting, that was an opportunity. It's not just the happy hour where you're supposed to meet people. You met
Mhm.
somebody places you didn't expect. So yeah, just constantly being on, yeah, as aggressive as that sounds, but
Right.
taking opportunities where you need to. So opportunities, networking, and then I think you mentioned it a little bit, but being a good person, just being
Yeah.
nice. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't have to like remember, oh, I'm supposed to be nice right now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
always nice, then it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, good. Well, we've got a few more minutes here. I want to talk a little bit more about you. What makes you tick? What's fun? What do you do outside of work?
So I mentioned earlier, I have a wonderful wife at home, and two young kids. So much of my time is dedicated to that, and I love that. I've been coaching teams for my 6-year-old son. Taking them to swim lessons this summer. So things like that, and seeing the joy they get from different activities, and really just being there for bedtime as much as I can, and not missing those moments. So I think, if you know me, you probably know that, that's always been a huge thing for me. Is finding that balance between being the best CFO I can be and meeting the demands of the job always, while also creating boundaries where I can to prioritize that. I know we're all balancing different things at home, whether they be significant other, kids,
Yep.
other activities, or things that you'd like to prioritize. So I know it looks and feels different for everybody, but for me that's always been an anchor, as far as priorities. So I also like to be involved in kind of the CFO network. I know you and I have spent time at happy hours, dinners, lunches, that type of thing. I think leaning into that, like I talked about earlier, the relationships. Sure, it's fun. I always have a good time, but I also think it's important to have industry, kind of contacts and people that you can talk to about the different things that are going on. I think like we when we started talking here, so much has changed and evolved over this administration as we talk about Doge and government shutdown, different priorities. Hearing perspectives like that, from peers of mine are really helpful,
Yeah.
because at times a CFO role can I guess it can be a little bit lonely at times, or tough decisions are need to be thought through. Hearing those different perspectives from folks, are helpful in the industry. So I think those are maybe a couple of things that stick out to me as far as maybe what makes me tick. But at the core, family is always, a key part of my life, the number one priority for me. Um, so
Excellent. Love it. That's a great motivator. It's one that I can appreciate myself.
yeah, yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes here. Is there anything else you want to share with the community? Any other tips, tricks for hungry up and comers? Any recommendations for other CFOs out there?
Um, I mean, I think I'm only as strong in my role. I've talked about the relationships, outside the company. I think within my team, I'm fortunate enough to have an amazing team, that I work with every day. I think it's always been really important for me to create, as much as I can, a culture where people, as much as they can, want to come to work and want to do their best, and create some environment that's fun. And that's always, really important to me. I always think of it as, we all have a choice of, where to work. and I want to create an environment that people don't want to leave. And I think that's really important because especially as you grow and evolve or grow in as a CFO, and you're becoming more and more, or you're being less and less hands on, and you're having to um, be a little bit out of the details. You're going to need a team behind you that you trust, and people want to follow the leader that they feel like they feel appreciated, or help create an environment that um, is as fun and as enjoyable as possible, right? I think 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. We'd all maybe ideally not want to be working a lot of days, but we're here, and let's make the most of it, and
Yeah.
let's create an environment that you know can be enjoyable. I also want to prioritize career development as well. I mean, I think not only is it the culture that you're creating, but truly, listening to your people, and where they want to go in their careers. I talked about the Sierra 7 example. I was fortunate enough to have a CFO that cared and wanted to get me exposure to different things, and help me learn, help me take the next step. I want to give that same opportunity to the people around me. So I think that's really important. That's, honestly what helps keep people motivated and keep people working with you is that showing of care and investment you might have in your folks. I think those are the
That's
couple
great.
things that stick out to me. Um, I think one area of you didn't ask this, but I think one area that I've had to get a lot better at as a CFO, and it continue to be kind of a growth area for me, is maybe it's a very simple thing, but you have to be decisive, right? And I think my
Mhm.
wife would tell me at times I'm too indecisive, but and you're not trying to make uninformed decisions, right? You're not just trying to make decisions all over the place without much thought. Well, you have to be willing to make decisions. You can't let stuff linger out there. You might
Right.
not always have perfect clarity or information, but a lot of times, I think of so many examples where a good decision made now is better than a great decision made in 2 months from now, when maybe some
It's too
opportunity
late.
passed by. And so I think that's been a growth area for me. I think I've gotten better at it. I think I can continue to get better at it, but I think that's really important for an aspiring CFO, is that a lot of stuff will come to your desk for decision, right? And so how can you make it in the time frame that you need to make it, while also feeling confident it is a good decision. So
Yeah.
that's a point to
You
just
mentioned, so on that same sort of topic, when you're early in your career, you have other staff within the same company that you can kind of cheat off of when it comes to notes.
yep,
No one's coming to you for, some crazy ask that you need to decide on as a leader in the company, as a staff. Similarly, when you get to the CFO level, you don't have those peers at the company. You have to go find them. And now you have to make the decisions. And it sounds like you're already there, and oh, I got to be more decisive. That's something I've had to learn too. It's a crazy feeling, because it probably doesn't feel like too long ago that you were 2 or 3 steps down. You're like, nope, not my
right,
responsibility. Someone else.
yeah, that's
Yep.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this today. Really appreciate it.
yeah, Billy, this has been great. I would just want to thank you for the time today. I think it's been incredible to see the impact you guys are having as part of GovCon Leaders Circle. And I'm just, it's been a pleasure for me to be part of it, and look forward to connecting with you again soon, and the rest of, the network that this group has provided. So again, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I'm Billy Hempler from GovCon Leaders Circle. Have a great week.